Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And joining me this morning is Kirthi Tenakon, the advisor to the Anti-Corruption Front. And thank you very much. In the context that the government is clearly facing difficulties in raising money, and our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Finance is traversing the world trying to get money into our country. We are also faced with the various revelations, the latest being the one from the Global Financial Integrity Group based in the United States, in which they say that 19.2 billion United States dollars has flown out of Sri Lanka without a proper explanation. On top of that, we've had revelations in the past, in 2012-13, when a company based in the Singapore region, Port Kalis, their records were compromised, and we were treated to the ICIJ offshore leaks. Thereafter we had the Swiss leaks, and now we've got the Panama Papers, the details of which will be available sometime in May, according to the ICIJ. In the meantime, they have put out various powerful stories, like the Putin friends, the King of Saudi Arabia and his secrecy, and David Cameron's late father's trust arrangements, and so on. In Sri Lanka, there has been great anticipation of the revelation of the database containing the Panama Papers, leaked from a firm in Panama called Mossack Fonseca. Now, Kirthi, taxes, are they for the rich or are they for the poor?
It's supposed to be from the rich to the poor, but here we are having a very great issue whether the taxation is purely on the favor of the poor to get the money which needed for the government to ensure that the fairness given to every citizen of the country. When the businessmen and the politicians get involved with business, the taxation is not always in favor of the state or the poor for that matter, and the rich people were given very big favorations, and we have seen it throughout the world. And for Sri Lankans matter, we have seen that the taxation was given in favor for the rich people in so many years after the independence.
Yes, you're quite right here. The rich are also, by implication, supposedly powerful, because in this country that is the way our political structure has been designed so far. We have no, for example, we have no legal or approved method of raising electioneering funds. So at any election it is almost all right if anybody gives anyone a donation. There are no limits, but there is an accountability process. All candidates are supposed to declare their accounts soon after. This aspect of the law, and it is the law, has been conveniently forgotten. Not quite swept under the carpet, but it's not implemented and it's being sidelined. But it's an important consideration, because obviously having had received donations from various business people, one is then almost obliged to take care of them once you are in power. Now, the point is, Kirthi, in the light of all these various revelations that are coming out, I think we must explain a distinct difference. Having an offshore account and a nominee company or nominee accounts is essentially not illegal per se. There are two matters to consider. One, actually in Sri Lanka, three matters, but let's deal with the first two.
Sure.
There is tax avoidance and there is tax evasion. Now, tax avoidance is perfectly legitimate as long as you're using legitimate ways to deal with that. Tax avoidance doesn't mean not paying tax. It means trying to find within the legal system a method to pay as little taxes as possible, to reduce your tax liability. And there are various ways that can be done. However, in Sri Lanka, if you are a holder of one of these accounts or companies, and you are the beneficiary of that, and in Sri Lanka, there are two things. One, you need to get the approval of the central bank through its exchange control department, and two, which is a system that everybody else in the world also has to do. If you are liable for taxes in this country, then whatever you hold outside, assets, cash, whatever, you need to make that declaration to the income tax department. If you don't, then it is tax evasion. Tax evasion is a criminal offense. And that is the difference between the two. One is avoidance, which is a legitimate way of trying to reduce your taxes, which is all part of the rules. But tax evasion is a criminal offense. And in Sri Lanka, as you say, Kirti, it appears to be that it is always the common man, the poor man, who is being hit. The people with influence, and therefore by implication with money, to maintain that influence, or perhaps even to buy the influence, appear to be getting away with it.
Yeah, for us, I mean, for last 2 decades, taxation is one of the main areas. All the financial sectors, the business people, the civil society, all were talking about. There was no proper regulations, and the lawmakers was not able to create an effective way and the very productive way, for that matter, on taxation, and especially on the tax policy of Sri Lanka. And this particular subject was highlighted in different levels, but very big noise made by the different stakeholders was not given a fair hearance. So definitely we are having an issue with taxation. The taxation policy is a very questionable issue for such a long time. In the other hand, as you very correctly said, we different organizations come up with different figures, but at least for last 10 years we know at least $2 trillion has flown out of the country.
2 trillion rupees
were taken out of the country by different people, organizations, and maybe corruption, bribery issues associated, etc. So the issue is that what the central bank has done for such a long time. In the other hand, the exchange controller's role on this particular issue is very much questionable. There was no transparency at all of some of the activities done through the central bank, especially a bond issue for last 14 months or so. In the other hand, the exchange controller's role is very much questionable, as we have seen some of the most known corruption issues like the Seychelles bank accounts holdings, and as you said in Panama Papers, it was now revealed that at least 22,000 bank companies, bank accounts are registered is under a question mark or under investigation now with Panama Papers.
Well, yeah,
so
but the thing is that in terms, to be fair and to be precise, the full database of the Panama Papers is
we expect only from May.
In May. But they have given us a general idea that there are 22 shareholders, 22
shareholders and 3 companies.
And 3 companies or individuals there. It's not clear yet.
Yes.
But the fact is that that's information yet to come. Now, in Sri Lanka, we have within our court system information that a group of businessmen who run a complex web of companies in this country, quite legally and legitimately, and who are a success story in their own right.
For sure.
They confirm in documents available in the Commercial High Court that assets of around $200 to $210 million is being held, or was held at that time, in Gibraltar under trust arrangements for the benefit of a Sri Lankan registered company. Now, it is incumbent upon the Commissioner of Taxes, the Inland Revenue Department, to establish whether this company, at that time, in that tax year, and the years before that, because this money has been held for quite a while, has that company declared those assets in their accounts in this country, so that if there was a tax liability, has it been paid? Now, on the face of it, with $200 million, you're talking of nearly $70 million of tax liability.
For sure,
now,
yes.
70 million, that's just the amount of tax, the potential tax liability. But having not paid it, you are liable and subject to pay penalties. Now, this is money that is available there. These businessmen are resident in Sri Lanka. Their companies continue to do business here. It is not something that they have to spend a lot of money to go in search of. Now, just to put it into perspective, when Kamil Kutubuddin and his associates decided to commit a VAT fraud, which we are happy to say went through the court system and it's been solved. Whether they actually returned all that money is another question. But at least justice in that case has been done.
Yes.
Kamil Kutubuddin continues to be on the run. He remains outside the law. But the value involved in that was 3.9 billion.
3.9 million.
9 billion.
Yes.
Now, the Golden Key matter had 9,054 depositors, and we were told at that time that the loss to the depositors or the customers of that organization was around 26 billion rupees. Now, 200 million US dollars lying around or 200 million US dollars, much of it in cash and other assets, in shareholdings and so on, amounts to, in today's currency, in today's exchange rate, approximately 30 billion rupees. That's with 4 shareholders. The Golden Key matter was 9,054 depositors or customers. So you can see the context in which we're talking of. And then, almost tongue-in-cheek, the government says, oh no, we're going to bring various matters under the purview of VAT, including mobile or telecommunications. The whole of that is going to be made VATable under the VAT. We're going to go for a break right now, but when we come back, we're going to show you a card in which it'll explain to you the already high taxes that we pay on our mobile telephone bills. And mobile telephones are not luxuries, they are a basic human right. Stay tuned to Newsline. We'll be right back after this break. Good morning again and welcome back to Newsline, where our guest this morning is Kirti Tennakoon, an advisor from the Anti-Corruption Front. We were talking about the introduction of VAT on communications, on telephony. I have a card which will demonstrate what we are talking about. Now, this card has been made up using figures before the proposed introduction of VAT onto these onto mobile telephone bills, or any telephone bill for that matter. I wonder if our producer this morning, right, there you go, there's the card, and you can see from that you pay on 100 rupees worth of calls, you're paying the government taxes of 27 rupees and 55 cents. That's a percentage of 27.55 on that's including international call charges. On packages that you have, those value-added services, say on 50 rupees, you're paying 13 rupees tax, and on data you're paying 6 rupees, which is 12%, and on IDD on that facility you pay 2.04%. All in all, if you had a 300 rupee package from any of the mobile operators, you're liable to be now paying around 31% by the time you add the VAT. That makes Sri Lanka one of the most expensive places in any democracy in the world to use a mobile phone. Now, somewhere somebody said that they'll make sure that only the VAT will only go on to these luxury items. But Kirti, do you think that a mobile phone
communication is not a luxury? It's a day-to-day need of the people. Everyone is using mobile phones.
I think that mobile phones is actually a human right. It's a basic human right.
It's a very basic human rights, and it's a part or the element which gives a huge boost for development. It's a communication is one thing you need to work on day-to-day life. If you are coming into the business, communication and the information is most important, valuable thing. And Sri Lanka for last 10 years at least is heavily taxed on communication, like the electricity in Sri Lanka, of course. And now if we are further increasing the taxations on telecommunications, definitely it will have a huge impact on Sri Lankan economy,
yes.
other than the individual rights of the people.
And the other thing, Keith, is I want to tell you this little side story. The chap who came last week to break the coconuts off the solitary tree that I have, while he was up there, he had a phone in his pocket, and he picked up and he said, well, I'm up on the tree, I'll call you when I get down.
Yes.
So even the coconut plucker has got a mobile phone. And for people who are living in poverty and who are living in shacks, in abject poverty, like our Gammad program, door-to-door campaign found out, in rural Sri Lanka, there are these forgotten people. It is not a luxury for them to have a mobile phone. It is a means of staying in touch. At least they can do that rather cheaply. But as our card showed before, it is not really that cheap. We are being taxed heavily as it is. It's not the phone companies, but the tax component is very high. And
tax component is the issue when it comes to the communication in Sri Lanka for such a long time now. On the other hand, the communication, if you are not ready to increase the facilities or the infrastructure for the communications, there are very small space for development of the country, increasing the business which is much needed at the rubber of the country. And we know that the government is having a very big financial crisis, and it at least needs $3 billion to ensure the proper cash flow to some extent for next
you're right. I think the operative word is to some extent. Because I read an article recently written by a former deputy governor of the central bank, Mr. Vijay Wardner, in which he points out that 3 billion isn't actually enough. And we must also point out that the last time round, when the United National Party was in power, that was a long time ago, they gave an amnesty to people, to VAT defaulters.
Yes.
That was thankfully challenged in court by a public interest litigator, Mr. Amarasekara, who successfully petitioned the courts and won the case. Thank you for doing that. It was needed. But in the same manner, we must draw our attention to government that the public know that world energy prices have come down, and they are very down. Our electricity bills do not reflect that, and yet the public are not agitated because they understand that the difference in the money, because it's lower prices now to buy the oil and the coal and so on, the difference is being used to retire previous debt. We understand that, but it is patently unfair to continue to tax the common man, because the government, they should be addressing...
For us, government needs money. Definitely, yes, we need money.
But don't you think that they should pay attention to getting all these dollars that are stashed away outside?
This is the issue. The central bank has not shown enough interest, or they haven't come up with a proper way of ensuring getting the money back, and this has to be blamed.
These people are doing business in Sri Lanka. They are very much here. The taxman, they should get an injunction and stop them trading if they're not going to pay their taxes.
That's the exact issue what I want to raise. In the other hand, we know that on behalf of the anti-corruption front, we have given 512 complaints to 6 government entities, including Bribery and Corruption Commission, FCID, so forth, and some of these investigations has come to its last pause, and some of these files, actually 42 files, has now gone to the Attorney General's department. But the issue is that if in Sri Lanka, inside Sri Lanka, the judiciary has to take actions, and they have to do something on these issues legally, so that the people, this money which is hidden outside the country, can take into the Sri Lanka.
You see, even if they're having this money outside, that's fine.
Fine. Or the taxation has to be done.
They must declare it and pay the taxes that accrue by virtue of the fact that they are here in Sri Lanka. It's very simple.
For us, there's no doubt that within the next 2-3 months, all the names and figures will come out, especially with the Panama leaks and all that. So the issue here, how to get that money back to Sri Lanka, or if in the other case, if they are not legitimately earned those monies through their companies or their activities, how to get the whole money is the question number 1. And the question number 2 is, you very correctly said, how to tax this big amount of money and ensure that the poor people of this country is giving that money. The issue here, in 2005, Sri Lankan the individual was debated on almost around 100 lakhs, and now that amount of per person debate is increased to 450,000. This is Sri Lankan's money, this Sri Lankan poor people's money. How to get this money back into Sri Lanka is the question number 1. The other hand, it is very unfair to tax on very common people who has nothing to do with this particular issue.
The other point that I need to point out is that much of these businessmen and their companies get a lot of incentives for bringing in this money and for doing business and so on, and for creating wealth and for creating opportunity, employment and so on. So the government gives them the necessary incentives, and therefore when there is tax evasion, the people are being let down big time. And they're being let down big time even more when the government are turning a Nelsonian eye by looking the other way. And that is not acceptable, because it is the poor man who is getting whacked every turn, at every time. There is now VAT on international schools. Thanks to the President, there will not be VAT on the water, electricity, and I think
on water they haven't decided yet, but we think there will be exception for that. But here, taxing on everything is not the very fair way of doing business and getting money which the government needs the biggest.
Indeed. I mean, this government came in Mr. Wickremesinghe and his party have made the case that they are the best people to run the economy. Well, you know, get on and run it. But not in these almost sort of dodgy ways where they're taking the easy route out. It is easy for them to ignore the money that was lying in an account in Gibraltar, because obviously the industrialist who is the prime force in that organization has got his political patronage, and his political patronage unfortunately has no political boundaries. So when it was the Kumaratungas in power, or the Rajapaksas, or now Wickremesinghe, his influence is all-encompassing and all-consuming.
For us, when mentioning about this present government, as they have made so much of promises during the election campaigning time and during the last 14 months or so, when it comes to the bigger picture, as anti-corruption activists, we are not very much happy the way government has handled these issues on principle basis. The main component of, or the most talked about issue during the good governance aspect during the campaigning time, they said that they will ensure that the adequate law enforcement will take place, and that adequate law enforcement on
has
bribery
been wholly inadequate.
It's throughout inadequate, yes. And the bribery and corruption issues were not very much addressed. In the other hand, the financial investigation, FCID, has done a tremendous good job, of course. Now almost 42 files has gone to the Attorney General's Department.
That's right.
It has stuck in the Attorney General's Department for almost 3 months now, and it is very much unacceptable in the other hand.
Unfortunately, Kirti, we've come to the end of our eventful half an hour. Thank you very much, Kirti, for being on our
program.
Pleasure
talking to you.
And thank you for watching Newsline. If you want to appear as a member of the public, if you want to appear on our program and be part of the discussion, do drop us an email and we'll be in touch with you. We do plan on having 1 or 2 members of the public so we can discuss directly with them what is on their mind. In the meantime, have a great day, take care, and God bless.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.